What kind of grown man doesn't have a car? Okay, I know this is a little extreme, but for a long time, I looked at car ownership as a marker of independence, maturity, freedom, even masculinity. My name is Kevin, and a little while ago, I put out a poll to my Instagram followers asking them what should be the next YouTube video that I make. Should it be a personal introduction to me or about my journey from car ownership to bike review? And it was a tie. So I'm actually making both videos. If you want to see 9 things that you should know about me, you can go and watch the video that I published a little while ago. But today I want to talk about my journey from car ownership to biking. Before I get into the story, I'm going to give a disclaimer. I am not a car abolitionist. I do not think that everyone should run out today, sell their cars, and get around only by wealth and luxury and public transportation. That's my journey, but I want to invite you to listen to my story and let it be interesting and informative for how you think about how you live your life. But by no means am I saying that you have to do what I did. So how did this journey begin? Well, let's think back a few years to when we're coming out of the pandemic. I think a lot of us, was trying to really be intentional about how I structured my life. So I was being intentional about how I structured my day, how I spent my time, and how I started my mornings. One of the things that I discovered I like to do from time to time was just spend some time in the morning at a park not far from where I lived at the time. And it was peaceful, it was tranquil, it was quiet in the early morning. I felt connected to the city and to nature at the same time. The part of those mornings that I did not enjoy was going out to my car, driving to the park, and then driving back home and hoping that I could find a good parking spot before continuing on with my day. Instead of feeling like I was enjoying a place of peace in my neighborhood, it felt like I was taking a trip to somewhere else that was peaceful and then leaving that peace and coming back to the real world. I started to realize that there were places that I frequented that weren't a short and comfortable walking distance away, but also were close enough that driving felt like a little bit too much of a hassle. I did my research, I thought about it, and I made the decision to get a bike as a way to get to those places that were in that kind of like in-between distance. Too long to walk, too short to drive. I got a bike, I was excited, I got it home, I started riding it. It was a horrible experience. At that point, I hadn't owned a bike since I was a kid, since elementary school. I had never commuted by bike. I think I had ridden a bike around a few blocks in the city once in my life. I didn't want to invest a ton of money in something when I wasn't sure how it was going to work out or if I was going to enjoy it. So the decision that I made was to get a cheap bike from Walmart. Bad decision. It was heavy, it was clunky, it was cumbersome. It wasn't really built or designed to be used for urban commuting the way that I was trying to use it. So it was a horrible experience. So horrible, in fact, that I needed to move my bike out of the building that I was living in, and I put it in the alley behind the building. And I figured it's tucked away. Nobody comes back here. I don't have the right lock for it right now. I'll get a lock and I'll lock it to the fence, and it'll just sit here until I want to use it. And then it got stolen, and I didn't care because it was a horrible experience to ride. And so you would think that would be the end of it, but it wasn't, because not long after that, I had to start thinking about getting a new car. I was leasing the car that I was driving at the time, which is a whole other conversation for another time. My lease was going to be ending soon, and I had to make a decision. Now, at this time, this is mid-2023. So at this time, used car prices were through the roof. They were super inflated. In fact, I had a 3-year lease for this car. The lease was almost up. the car was worth almost as much after 3 years as it was worth when I got it. So I knew if I was going to keep that car or if I was going to get a used car that I actually felt confident in, I was going to have to finance that car because even used cars were super expensive at that point in time. So I had a decision to make. Did I want to try and keep this car? Did I want to get a used car? Did I want to get a release? And I really didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to have a car note. I really tried to think logically and practically about what it would mean to keep that car or get a different car. And I wanted to make a wise decision. I wanted to be a good steward of the resources that God gave me. And I wanted to not necessarily be bound to doing things the way everybody else did that. One of the things that I realized was that I was spending an enormous percentage of my income on transportation. That may not seem enormous to you because it's enormous, but it's normal, right? As people, we spend a lot of money in transportation on average. At the time, AAA estimated that the average cost of owning and operating a vehicle was around $10,000 a year. And since then, they've updated that estimate to over $12,000 a year. So on average, if you own a new car, you're spending about $1,000 a month to own and operate that vehicle, to pay the car note, to pay for insurance, for fuel, for maintenance, for all the other little incidental costs that comes with having a car. For me, as a person who spends 95% of his life within a 6-mile radius of where I live, it didn't make sense to spend that much money. And I wasn't even spending, $1,000 a month. But even what I was spending on having a car and looking at how many miles I was driving and how much I was really using the car, it just didn't make sense to me to have that financial burden. Also, during this period, I started gradually experimenting just with other forms of transportation. So obviously there's public transportation, and this is hard for people who live in Philadelphia to believe, but compared to most of North America, we actually have really decent public transportation. I didn't get my first car until I was in my 20s, so I was pretty familiar and comfortable with getting around on the bus, on the subway, on the train. If I was going into Center City for something, and for those of you who are not from Philly, if you're watching this, Center City is what we call our downtown. So I would go into Center City for something, and instead of driving and riding around for 15 minutes looking for a place to park and then having to pay to park, I would just park outside Center City. Like I would park at 12th and Tower Hill and walk, right? I got some exercise. I got to see the city, and I didn't have to pay for parking. I didn't have to worry about, I only got an hour, only got 2 hours. I didn't have to ride around looking for parking. Didn't have to fit in this parking spot that was too small. Like I eliminated all of that by just parking somewhere else for a while. Then I started to experiment with our bike share program. So we have a bike share program in Philadelphia called Indigo. It's a floating bike share, which means you rent a bike from one station and then you can drop it off at any other station in the city. You don't have to return it to it. So I started playing around with that. Then I realized that not only did they have like regular bikes, but they had e-bikes. So I tried that out, and I realized like I really liked it. And I realized that if the goal is not exercise or recreation, but the goal is transportation, e-bikes are a really excellent solution. They're smaller than a car. They're cheaper than a car, but you're not putting in all the strenuous effort of riding a regular bike. It kind of eliminated that horrible experience that I had with the cheap bike that I got for New York. So what I realized was I can do this, right? There's a bus stop literally outside my front door. Biking is something that works for me. That opened a lot of doors for me to really think about just not having a car at all. The other thing that helps with that is, we typically get a car, buy a car, lease a car, and then we just have it 24/7. you can rent cars. There are car share programs. So if I need a car 3 hours a month, I pay to have a car for 3 hours a month. That was kind of the decision making process for me. I got rid of my car 2 years ago. I'm recording this in July 2025. I got rid of my car in June of 2023. And I had about a 1 month period between getting rid of my car and when I got my bike. I also had a process of like figuring out what kind of bike I was going to get. I knew I wanted to get an e-bike because I knew that I didn't want to have a repeat of the other bike that I got that I didn't enjoy riding. And again, the primary purpose is not recreation, it's not exercise, it's transportation. Doing my research, I realized that there were a lot of cheap e-bikes, and you get what you pay for. So I needed to like research and figure out like, okay, what's a safe, reliable, well-made e-bike? For me, my concept of a bike was walk into a Walmart and you see these bikes between like $100 and $300 and you pick one. Good e-bikes are going to go between $1,000 and like $5,000 if you want to get like luxury premium stuff that you don't need. So I did my research. I watched a lot of review videos on YouTube, and I settled on getting a bike from a company called Aventon. It's called the Solterra 7. They've since come out with like a newer model of it, but I've had this bike for 2 years. I still enjoy riding it. And so someone on Instagram asked me how it's been going. It's been going great. My initial plan was to not have a car for a year, see how I felt about it, and then maybe after a year, get a really cheap used car, pay for it in cash, and have a cheap used car and a bike so that if anything happened to the car, I wasn't like super dependent on it. It's been 2 years. I don't have any plans of getting a car anytime soon. It helps again that I know if I need a car, there are options to get one without having to buy a car. But it's been going great for me so far. I enjoy the physical activity. I enjoy being able to get outside and get sunlight. Another question that I got on Instagram was, how do I see this all playing out if in the future I have a family, I have a wife, I have kids? What I would love for my answer to that to be is I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing right now. I would love to be able to say that I feel comfortable with the state of public transportation and bike infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure in Philadelphia to the point that I don't think I'll ever need a car, even if I have a wife, even if I have small children. That's not true. I think we have a long way to go in order to get to that point. I do know that there are lots of families in cities across the country, including here in Philadelphia, who choose to be car free. Maybe that will be me, but I think for me, the best mix of an ideal world and a realistic world is being a one-car family. I would love to live in a neighborhood and raise a family in a neighborhood where we don't need to use a car to do everything that we need to do as a family, where it is comfortable and convenient for us to walk certain places or use public transportation to get certain places. And so that would be my goal, is to limit how much we need to use a car as much as possible. How realistic that will be, I don't know, because I don't know if or when I'm going to ever be in that position. And I can't predict the future in terms of what our public policy is going to be. I am neither a prophet nor the son of a prophet. So we'll see. Using a car as little as possible, that would be the goal for me. Another question that I got is, what do I think about not the city's plan, but the movement to try and build a new subway line in Philadelphia in the Northeast? It's a little off topic, but it's not really off topic. So I'm gonna just briefly answer that question. I think it's a great idea. The plan or the idea is to revive a 100-year-old plan to build a subway line down the Roosevelt Boulevard. Roosevelt Boulevard is historically one of the most dangerous streets in America. For those of you who are not from here, it cuts through residential and commercial neighborhoods. And when I say residential neighborhoods, I don't mean like it's a highway that's near people's houses. I mean people's front doors on Roosevelt Boulevard. It's a street with stoplights and crosswalks and buses, but it's also like a 12-lane highway at the same time. So it's a street that people drive on like a highway. It's very dangerous, lots of deaths, lots of injuries, lots of foolishness. I think a subway, along with other traffic calming, is a great idea. It limits people's car dependency. It can help other policies that will make people drive in a more responsible way. And so I think if you can spur development, provide services to people, help people have more freedom and independence to choose to have a car or to not have a car, and in doing all of that, you save lives and help prevent kids from getting injured and hit by cars, like, to me, that's a win-win. So I'm in favor of it. I hope that it happens. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, for listening to my story, listening to my journey. I would love to talk about these things more. So if this is a subject matter that interests you, or if you just have questions, if there's something that I said that sparked something in you that you'd like to hear me talk about more, or a question that you'd like for me to answer, please leave a comment below. I'll do my best to get to every single comment and maybe do a part 2 where I answer some of your questions. Also, if you are enjoying these videos that I'm making, please hit subscribe. Not only does that increase my subscriber count, but it's an encouragement to me to let me know that something that I'm saying is resonating with people and I should keep making these videos. So please, please, please hit subscribe, hit the like, send this video to somebody else who think that will find it interesting. And I appreciate you. Peace.